Right now we are continuing this speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1989 regarding the amazing miracles that happened on Yud-bet and Yud Tammuz, when the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, was miraculously freed from imprisonment and exile in communist Russia. And he, as we said before, he frontally attacked, one man attacked the whole communist regime that had killed tens of millions of people, and they wanted to kill him, and that miraculously he not just escaped, but he defied them. He defied them. He didn't comply in any way and is given a little bit. He actively defied what they wanted. And in the end, they wanted him to sign papers. There was a story. They signed papers and he refused, and they pulled out a gun, put it to his head, and they said, "This little toy has made people like you do whatever we want." And he said, "It scared a lot of people just like you." And the Rebbe said, "That little toy scares people that have a lot of gods. There's a lot of pleasures, a lot of desires, and only this world." So, but I have only one God, and I have two worlds. And he was implying that right now, he's also living in spiritual world as well as a physical world right now. And that little toy has no effect on me. In other words, it's God's world. It's not your world. It's not my world. So that thing doesn't scare me. I'm not going to go against the Creator just in order to be like you, get into your mindset. So he defied them, and he defied them on his terms. And unexplainable, they beat him up and they tortured him. And so they put him in this sort of a little, I can't exactly figure out what it was, but it was some sort of a chamber that there was like excrement, I guess, up to his knees. And that's how he describes it. And there were all these rats running around and weird sort of spiders and bugs on the walls. So he couldn't rest. And they kept him there for 2 days in this place. And he refused to break. He refused to. The whole thing makes no sense. But anyway, that's what happened. And he refused to give in to them at all, to be afraid, not whatsoever. He treated them as they didn't even exist. So he got out. He defied them. Death did not scare him. And death was their what do they call it? That was their trump card. That was their ultimate weapon. And it scared everybody. The communists ruled over the whole entire country because of this. They held life and death in their hands. They could kill anybody they wanted to, and everybody complied. And the previous Rebbe did not comply. And not only did he not comply, but he refused to comply. I'm sorry. He did his thing. He did his thing. It's not that he just held on to where he was. His view was the dominant one, that God does exist and the Torah really is true, and that Judaism really is the answer to the world's problems, not communism. And that they themselves will be happy, like the curses of Bilam transformed. Okay, the blessings. It says the Rebbe, that all happened on Yud-bet Tammuz. Yud-bet Tammuz was when the day that the Russians, the communists, admitted that the Rebbe won and that they lost. And that was the beginning of the crack in the Iron Curtain. And it came to a head, I think it was 1991, that all of a sudden, that's it. Stood up a leader in Russia, Gorbachev, and he said, that's it, no more communism. No, it's not working. And it's not working. And suddenly all the doors got opened up and there was no, there was no more communism. And this whole thing is stressed, all these ideas of making the world into the domain of the creator. That's the thing of Shabbat. It fell on Shabbat. And also it fell on Parshas Balak, like we have this week, that the curses turn to blessings. All these things, and that it's affected, it will affect the whole entire world. The whole entire world will be affected. The whole entire world will feel the creator, the love of the creator, like we just finished saying. A lot of people say that there's going to be the Moshiach is going to come and he's going to destroy all the bad guys, and and we're going to win. Only the believers are going to win. We're going to live, and you're going to be sad. You're going to be sorry, and this is so. According to Judaism, it's not so. The Mashiach is going to come, and everybody's going to be happy, except for the people who don't want to be happy. They don't want any part of it. People who love death, so they'll get what they want. But very few people are like that. The majority of the people that oppose Judaism is because they were just taught that way. They don't know any different. They don't know how evil the church is and these things. They don't know how destructive it is. And that's just what they were taught. They don't know any better. When Mashiach is revealed, Mashiach reveals godliness in the world, he's going to reveal the good in the world. That's what it means, that the whole entire world will feel that we're in God's domain. It's God's world. It's not our world. This is especially stressed in what happened on Yud-bet Tammuz and Yud-gimel Tammuz. When the Rebbe got out of prison, what happened? That the whole world will feel this. Chag HaGeula, this whole holiday of the redemption, Nikva, was 2 days. 2 days. Yud-bet and Yud-gimel Tammuz. Why? On Yud-bet Tammuz, again, just in a short way, what happened? They arrested the Rebbe in the middle of the month of Sivan. They put him into jail. He was taken into prison. He was supposed to be killed. Miraculously, he wasn't killed. Right? They told him that he could get out. It was the first day of Tammuz. He refused to leave the prison. He said, I'm not going to leave. If I have to travel on Shabbat, I'm not going to leave. So they actually physically let him out of the prison. It was on third day of Tammuz. Then they sent him. It was supposed to be 3 years in exile. Instead, he stayed 9 days. On the 9th day, which was the 12th day of Tammuz, it was told him that he was free, he could go. But he couldn't get the papers. He had to have papers. They were going to always ask him for his papers. And there was a holiday, so they couldn't give him his papers. So they got his papers only on Yud Gimel Tammuz. So it ended up that he was in the hands of the communists almost 1 month, almost a month. He was taken on the 15th day of the month, and on the 13th day of the next month, he was released. Okay, so why did it happen in these stages? Remember, that's the same thing we learned about before. Why did it happen in stages? On the 12th day, it was announced that he was free, but he still was not actually physically given freedom until the day afterwards. Because this day, the 12th day of Tammuz, was some sort of a holiday in the country in some sort of a communist holiday, I don't know what. And all the Misrad and all the government offices in the city where he was, in the city Kastramar, it was all closed. So he had to wait for the next day, Yud Gimel Tammuz. Says the Rebbe, 1 second. I thought God was the boss over here and that God can do whatever he wants. I mean, God couldn't make it that somebody happened to be in his office and that they would sign, or someone would go specially to the office and stamp the thing. Why did they have to wait for the... We have to understand, Kivan Shekol and Yenim, since that everything in the world, how much more so the redemption of the Rebbe, they are directed by God. It's called Hashkacha Pratit. Every detail is directed by God. Lama Hashem Kacha. Why did God make such a thing? That the freedom, the release of the Rebbe from prison should delay an additional day. Just because of some sort of a law of a national holiday, and that this office was closed. Until Shemazkirin Mamadgishin, that we even stress it, that the holiday is Yud-bet and Yud Gimel Tammuz. That's what we say, Yud-bet, Yud Gimel Tammuz. So says the Rebbe, why did there have to be this natural process over here? What's nature got to do with it? The whole thing is the Rebbe was a king, the Moshiach. The Rebbe is God's man. The world belongs to God. Everything belongs to God. Good, okay, whatever reasons is, they was put into prison because, like the Jews, they were in Egypt and they were imprisoned, and you come out. But why does the stupid delay of the last day? That he went through the prison. He went through the suffering. He went through Egypt. Now he's got to get out. Do it like the Jews did, right? When they were supposed to get out, they got out. Here the Rebbe was announced that he was out, but he couldn't leave because he had to have his papers. Why? I mean, who is really the boss over here? Is God the boss? But we can understand Shaila Dugmas, a similar question regarding to the first Rebbe of Chabad, when he was also put into prison. There was Tsarist prison, but he was also put into prison, and he got on a Yud-bet Tammuz. The first Rebbe of Chabad wasn't actually sentenced to death. He didn't have a judgment of death over him, but he was taken in the black coach and he was put into a place where from there people are executed. He was a political, branded a suspected traitor. Okay, so the same thing happened with the first Rebbe of Chabad. This was 200 years earlier. Shekatov, that he writes in his letter Hayadua, which was known when he got freed. He wrote in his letter, which was known. What did he write to Rav Levi Yitzchak B'Ditchev? And he said also, one second, to Rav Baruch Mimezebus, one second. Shegeula told that he got out of prison, Hayatah wasn't a way of Hafle Hashem Higdil Asos Ba'oretz, that God did wonders in the world. Ubafrat Be'ani Kol Asarim, and also he said, the first Rebbe of Chabad said, and even all of the high ministers, V'kol Amim, and all of the people, the non-Jews, Asher B'kol Medinot HaMelech, that are in all of the countries of the king, the Lichiora, ain't no movement. That's what he said. That it wasn't just a miracle for me, it was a miracle for the whole entire country of Russia. Says this is not understood. A Geula, this freedom that the first Rebbe of Chabad was freed from prison. He sat in prison for 53 days in Tsarist prison in Petersburg. This redemption of Yud-tes Kislev, this is a very, very high thing. Yud-tet Kislev. That's when the first Rebbe got out of prison. This is called the Rosh Hashanah for Chassidut. This is called the beginning, really, of Chabad Chassidut. But as then it began the main thing of spreading out the Torah outwards. Why do we care about Rosh Hashanah? What the influence that it made on all of the ministers of the government and all of the Gentiles that are in all the kingships of all of the countries of the king. What do we care about the Jews? Even more, you could say, what do we even about the Jews? This is a movement. Chabad is a movement, a bunch of Jews that have the same sort of nature, and they gather together. These ideas are appealing to them, and their leader was put into prison. The whole entire movement was in danger, and the leader got out. So it's really the holiday of Yud-bet Tammuz with the previous Rebbe and of Yud-tet Kislev of the first Rebbe. This is an internal thing regarding to us, right? It says not right. First of all, what are the Jewish people? The Jewish people, it says in the Bible, that we are the sons of God. It says in the same Bible that God creates the world. God creates the world constantly, every moment. Right? That's how Chassidut explains it. So if we're the sons of God, it means that we're the sons of the Creator. He's creating the world right now, and every Jew is his son. So whatever happens to every individual Jew, somehow or other, is affecting the Creator, and consequently the whole entire creation. But still, that's if we look at it from God's point of view. But if we look at it from a normal point of view, the Jews are just what does it say, 0.02% of the population of the world. And Chabad is who knows what percent, 0.02 population of the Jewish people, however, what it is. So this is a very, very small percentage. What are we making this big deal out of it? That one Rebbe got out of prison and that affects the whole world. All of the non-Jews are affected by this. Says the Rebbe, the explanation is like this. Kavan since Geula, that these, what we call redemptions, the first Rebbe got out of prison, and 200 years later, the previous Rebbe got out of Yud-tes Kislev and Yud Gimel Tammuz, that Kashura, this is connected to the Geula Mitis for Shlema, this is connected to the Moshiach. The Moshiach is going to be a Jew, and he's going to turn the whole entire world to good, like we just finished learning. True Atmel, he's going to show the love of God to the whole world. Everyone's going to feel the love of God. As then, birur, there'll be a refinement of the whole entire world. The world will become a little bit transparent. We'll see the real tremendous, precious value of every detail of the world. Kol, this includes also all of the non-Jews. Like it says, Azafoch Amim, like it says the prophecy over there of Isaiah, isn't it? Tzfania. I'm sorry. Rambam also brings. Of Tzfania. Then I will transform all of the nations to call on God in one language. What's it? Yes. Then I will transform all of the nations to call on God with a pure language. In other words, everyone will call God. And to serve God with one group. And therefore, Magdishim, we connected with the stresses, the effect that the Rebbe had on the non-Jews to all of these redemptions. Why? To show that the fact that the Rebbe's got out, it's not just the Rebbe's got out, Jews got out. And not just regular Jews, but Jews that demonstrated the fact that they're the sons of God. And demonstrated the fact that God is the creator of the whole universe. He's creating everything. Therefore, what happened was when these Jews got out of prison, this released God's love to all mankind. Kedivrei Rabbeinu Zakan, like the Alter Rebbe says, Hafle Hashem Beinei, that God did wonders Beinei Kol Asarim, in the eyes of all the ministers and all the people. Al Derech says similarly, Benogea, in regard to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, when in Yud-bet Tammuz, that was in a way that it was revealed to all of the nations and all the people, and even more. Lo rak apirsum, not just the advertising to everybody, to all of the nations, to all of the Gentiles, elashafilu hapuula rishmit the chafesh, not just in intellect, everybody heard about it, but actually did something. What did they do? The actual doing, physically, action, not just speech and thought. Lorak pakuda, not just the order. In other words, intellectually, theoretically, the Rebbe was freed, but even more, he got the physical papers that had to be in a way that it was according to nature. Let's get this. 1 minute. Oh, I got the wrong page. It was recognized that this is the Choka Medina, that everything was according to the law of the country. That it delayed for one day until the country would agree, according to the laws of the procedures of the country, to give him a freedom. There's a story about this. The Baba Sali, the Yisrael Abu Chatzera, some say it was with the Rav Yaakov Abu Chatzera, that he flew out of Morocco. He flew to Eretz Israel. He flew on a carpet. It says that's what Sali, I guess, means a carpet. And so he flew out of the. That's a nice miracle. He flew out. So it could have. Why wasn't it the same thing with the Rebbe? He could have just flown out, right? They just opened up his cell one day and said, "Where did he go? What happened?" Where did he go? Look, maybe there's a hole in the wall. Maybe he got out. No, I don't know what happened. Right? And someone said, "Well, I saw him fly. Yeah, did you see it? We saw him fly. He flew out. Why not do it that way?" He says, because then you'd think that Judaism has the power to, how do you say, to shortcut the world, to ignore the world, pass over the world. Here we're saying, no, that's not the idea. The idea is to change the world, that the world itself should agree. And that's what happened. The Russia agreed, according to the laws of Russia, it was a Russian holiday. They waited for one day. Then the offices opened up. Everything happened natural. But all that nature was devoted 100% to the Rebbe, to freeing the Rebbe. So until the offices were opened up in an official way. And in this way, Nivosef, there was added on Chirush Miyuchad, a special novelty in the Shabbat. That in the Senate of Medina Chesed Zu, of this kind country, America was called Medina Chesed, because they allowed freedom, especially because they allowed freedom of religion, especially the Rebbe said. But not only freedom of religion, there was also freedom of, in general, there was, the whole capitalistic idea was freedom. The people, even the most simple person can take out a loan somewhere, open up a business, and he can succeed. A person that barely can speak English, right? They can go and they can open up businesses and they can succeed. They become millionaires someday. And that was there was a country of kindness, that everyone was respected, everyone's opinion was respected, everyone. He said in the Senate that they're sitting there as representatives of all of the population of America. And most of the population of America are certainly not Jews. Like I think 2% of the population of America are Jews. But the Senate, they announced, or maybe it was just the House of Representatives anyway, they announced in an official way that Yud-bet and Yud Tammuz, Shabo v'hodaya, that they came, the Shevach, they gave a praise to the King of the universe, to God, Umanigo al Nes Hatzalah, on the miracle of the release of the Rebbe. Usually, I think it is that in the Senate, they have a religious person opening up what they call an invocation. So all the different religions come. And I guess one at a time, once every month. I don't know exactly how it works out. Maybe once every the opening session of Congress, whatever it is. And they give an invocation, may God Almighty, keep this, protect the country and protect all the people. Whatever, they say something like that. So here they had, or maybe it was a special thing. In any case, they had a representative of Chabad, and he said that this is the day that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe got out of communist Russia. Of course, in America, they hate communism. They got out of communist Russia, and they announced that they gave praise to God that he did this big miracle in the Senate. It says they even set a day, the cover, Makom B'dirato Zu, B'Medina Zu, even more, that the Rebbe, when he got out of Russia, or he went to Poland for 10 years, but when World War II broke out, he came to America and he set his place of living in America. Shabo Avad Avodato, that's where he worked for the last 10 years of his life. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And from this country, he spread out Judaism, Torah and Judaism, and spreading out all the well springs of Hasidut to the whole entire world, right? Ideas of Hasidut were translated into all these different languages and spread out. Often the Mosif, the Holich, B'Shani Machron, in the years that are afterwards, right? The previous Rebbe, he sent emissaries to Tunisia and to Morocco and to these places that, were previously, they were in danger of like French culture carrying Jews away from Judaism. And he sent emissaries to these countries in the course of 40 years after he passed away, because now the Rebbe says this is 1990 when the Rebbe is speaking. And the previous Rebbe passed away in 1950. So 40 years afterwards, this is regarding spreading out Judaism and the ideas of Hasidut to the Jewish people. But whether talking about spreading them out to the Jewish people, or whether it's just spreading out ideas of doing good, of charity, of justice, and honesty by the non-Jews by means of doing the 7 Noahide commandments. Kachana as a preparation for the Az Afoch Alamim, as a preparation for that prophecy we just talked about in Sephania, that all of the world, all of the non-Jews will call on only the Creator. They won't call on their different gods or whatever they're called. They won't worship spirits or things. They'll worship only the Creator of the world. And they will all serve the Creator with one's shoulders. What does it mean, like we said, serving the Creator? That everything they do, they'll do the same things they do now. They'll have jobs, they'll have homes, but everything they do, they'll say, thank God. And what does God want here in my business? What should I lie? Should I cheat? Should I steal? Should I rob? They'll think in their minds, they'll take into consideration what God wants. And that's what it means. They'll all serve God with one shoulder. Not only that, there's also another thing over here. And that is, in fact, when you do what God wants, in fact, God takes care of you. Of course, you ask questions as there was a Holocaust and there was this. Yeah, good. There's questions. But I'm talking about in general. Honest people get along. It's possible to get along in the world by telling the truth. It's possible. It's possible to get along in the world without getting angry, without getting addicted, being an alcoholic, being a whatever it is. It's possible to get along in the world. And even more, when you do live your life according to these eternal values, so you feel that you've done something human, right? An animal just wants to get along, doesn't want problems, that's all. That's not man. The purpose of man is not to have problems. The purpose of man is to be attached to something more eternal than just his body or his whatever, success, the world. To be in the world, but to do things that are meaningful. This, especially Professor Viktor Frankl, really he's just such an amazing, the genius and I say loving person to bring into this world his ideas. Is just really fantastic. And he's talking about the non-Jews, that to live a life which is, not so glamorous and glittery and, money and pleasures and this and that, but to live a life that's honest is more meaningful than all of the glitter and fame and things like that. Not that glitter and fame is bad. That's okay. But if it's missing, how do you say, the people have the means, but they don't have the meaning. The Yesh Lo Osif, says the Rebbe, that's the whole point of Yud-bet Tammuz, that it was announced officially in America that this day is a special day for all of the world. I don't know how exactly that's expressed. No, I know that later on they made for Yud Aleph Nisan, which that's the birthday of the Rebbe. I think that even exists today. It's called Education Day. And recognizing the fact that the Lubavitcher, the Chabad movement, they devoted themselves totally to education. But Yesh Lo Osif, we can also add on, and the effect that it had on the non-Jews in this revelation, in the day of Yud-bet Tammuz, regarding Yud Tes Kislev. Yud Tes Kislev was in the first Rebbe, was released. What did Yud-bet Tammuz, the previous Rebbe, got accomplished that the first Rebbe didn't accomplish? In a little bit deeper way. It's known that the connection between the first Rebbe of Chabad, the one we learn in the morning, right? Likutei Torah, the Tanya. It's known the connection of the first Rebbe of Chabad and his attitude toward Russia and France. Russia and France. Okay, now, there we go. Russia and France. In the time that the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe died as fleeing from Napoleon. Napoleon, I mean, the little bit of history that I know, Napoleon made a war against the whole world and he succeeded everywhere. It was just amazing, miraculous. He had these amazing victories and he was knocking down kings all over the place. And it was just making a whole new Europe, a whole new world based on liberty and fraternity and equality and everything. And he was purportedly a, not in any way anti-Semitic, which was not true. But anyways, he wanted to destroy the Jews, but he realized he could destroy them better with honey than he could with vinegar, right? So, okay, so everybody wanted to destroy the Jews, right? The church for sure wanted to destroy the Jews. And Russia was perhaps the most religious country that ever existed. And they did everything they could just to, conscript, take the young Jewish children into the army and to try to brainwash them and everything. They were, and on the other hand, France was very nice to the Jews. They wanted to let them out from all of the ghettos and to put them on an equal footing and to give them recognition and everything like that. And all of the great Jewish leaders were in favor of Napoleon, and justly so. Napoleon was going to, and the first Rebbe of Chabad was against Napoleon. We talked about this before, and even sent spies to spy on Napoleon, because Napoleon didn't suspect that the religious Jews would be against him. And the spies to spy against him for the good of Russia. Now, Russia was no less of an enemy than France was, ostensibly. But the fact of the matter was that the Rebbe said that if France wins, it'll be great for the Jews. It'll raise the glory of the Jewish people physically. But spiritually, it's going to be a tragedy. And Russia, they already knew what it was. It was physically, it was a tragedy, but at least spiritually, it wasn't. It was clear what a Jew is in Russia. When Russia and France, when they made a war, as Ratza Rabbeinu Kodesh, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he wanted that Russia should be victorious. Because the situation, the spiritual situation of the Jewish people, God-fearing, it says, was better under Russia than it would be under France. Like we see clearly, that in the course of all the generations, from the Baal Shem Tov until the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, right? There was revealed spreading out of Judaism and Hasidut was in Russia. That's where the Chabad was. The Baal Shem Tov, Ukraine, Russia, at that time was the same. Moving from there, it's understood after the redemption of the Alter Rebbe in Yud-bet Kislev, and that God did these amazing miracles for the first Rebbe of Chabad, and all the nations knew about it. Lo nase adayin habiru b'medina Sarfat. But nevertheless, France was not yet affected. The Alter Rebbe was freed. He was put into prison. He was freed, but still Chabad remained in Russia. France was not affected. That France became like very low spiritually regarding fearing God and Hasidut and Judaism. There were Jews, sure, and Rashi came from France, but still in general, France was a free country where there were just Jews, but there was tremendous assimilation. In Russia, almost no assimilation whatsoever. That was what happened up to the previous Rebbe. When the previous Rebbe got out of prison in Yud-bet Tammuz, that even sorry, that's the novelty by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that even in the days before he was the Rebbe, he went and visited several times in France. And after he came out, he was evicted from Russia. After the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, we're talking about the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, after he was evicted from Russia, he was freed from Russia. He went to Poland. He said, after Yud-bet Gimel Tammuz, that he sent messengers to France, and he sent even essays of Hasidut to France, because there were some Hasidei Chabad there. And he added on until this very day. Like we see clearly that in the last years, there was a tremendous spreading out of Judaism in France. I remember I was there. I don't remember what year this was, but I think that it was Tufshin Memhe. I think it was 1985, I think. And the Rebbe used the melody of the French national anthem, and he put words of one of the paragraphs of the prayers that we say. Haderet ve'amuna l'chai olamim. We say it on Shabbat. And he put it to the, what is it called? The French national anthem. Haderet ve'amuna l'chai olamim. Abinu v'bracha l'chai olamim. And they say, anyway, after he did that, then the next year I saw it. I was there. The next year, I went for I think for Tishrei, it was it. All of a sudden, the place was filled with French people, and there were girls that came from France. They went in to the Rebbe. They knew they were Jews. They didn't know what to do. They put on a lipstick and perfume. It was amazing. All of a sudden, it's like the walls of the doors opened up for France. Many Jews came close to Judaism. They became connected to the Rebbe, Balagula, and they learned to the Torah of the previous Rebbe until they themselves became like flames to illuminate. They, instead of being illuminated by Hasidut, they taught others. By spreading out Torah and Judaism and outward. And until they even had effect on the non-Jews, that the non-Jews did the 7 Noahide commandments. Namely, that this redemption of Yud-bet Tammuz stresses the effect of Hasidut on the non-Jews, on the lowest of the low. People that were involved in idolatry. They were totally world people. But what's the religion that they believe in with the church? This world is bad, the world to come is good. This world is bad, the world to come is good. It comes along Hasidut and says the world to come is good, and this world is infinitely better. And suddenly this idea started to catch on. And that's the idea of the 7 Noahide commandments. Also, where the previous, it says what happened, that France, instead of being an enemy like it was in the time of the first Rebbe Chabad, that the first Rebbe was worried about the spiritual situation of the Jews. If France won, that by means of, not only is if France not a danger after the previous Rebbe got out of prison, France presented no danger to the Jewish people. Exactly the opposite. France helped the Jews become more Jewish. By means of this is finished the preparation of the future redemption that then will be Bapoil, really a Dira B'Tachtoni. Then the whole world will be like a dwelling place for God, like the Holy Temple was, a happy place. This world at the lowest, that there's nothing lower than it, will actually become a dwelling place and a revelation of the essence of God, as we will continue, God willing, tomorrow. And now we'll do the Yom Yom.